House of EdTech, episode 58.
Hi, this is LaVonna Roth from Ignite Your Shine, and you're listening to the Shine-tastic House of EdTech with Chris Nesi.
Support for this episode of the House of EdTech comes from Grammarly. Grammarly makes you a better writer by finding and correcting up to 10 times more mistakes than your word processor. Instantly fix over 250 types of errors and grammar mistakes. Visit chrisnesi.com/Grammarly to add Grammarly to your browser of choice and instantly improve all your written correspondence. You can also use Grammarly on your desktop with programs like Word and Outlook. I've been using Grammarly for quite some time, and you should too. To get started, go to chrisnesi.com/Grammarly. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Christopher Nesi, and the House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. My objectives include discussing technology that is changing our classrooms and schools and sharing tools and tips that you can hear about today and use tomorrow. I talk to teachers, leaders, and creators just like you and have them share their stories. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way we teach and how our students learn. And welcome back inside another episode of the House of EdTech podcast. Today is a very special episode because this episode should have happened quite some time ago, and yet here we are. I'd like to bring on my special guest co-hosts for this episode, Mr. Adam Schoenbart and AJ Bianco. Good evening, gentlemen. How are you doing, AJ?
Mr. Nesi, I am doing great. I'm very excited to be here. This is a long time coming. This is take 2, and I'm excited for this.
I'm happy that you're here, and the record button is blinking at me, so I know I didn't screw this up.
Well, there's always a possibility.
There is. AJ, sorry. Adam, how are you?
I'm doing just great. Excited to be here. I think I hope we could capture the magic of our first go around when we tried to record an episode back at EdCamp, New Jersey. But I'm excited to give it another shot.
Well, we all know it's never as good as the first time, but we're going to give it our best shot tonight.
Yeah, we need Adam to bring a little more excitement than that. That voice was not exciting.
I am so excited. My House of EdTech debut. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a good day. How's that, AJ?
That was much better.
Cool.
I am very impressed. I might bring you guys back depending on how the next 40 to 50 minutes goes. So coming up in this episode, guys, we have the EdTech Thought and our featured content, which today we're going to be talking about life after an EdCamp. So I am very excited to talk about this topic. And this was actually your guys' idea. So thank you so much for giving me a topic to talk about and being willing to come on here.
You are very welcome.
Absolutely.
AJ, before we get into the content, how's it going? What's new in the world that you're working in?
Everything is good. Still trying to get into a flow here. We're teaching 7th and 8th grade social studies back in the classroom from a little reprieve, but I'm enjoying it. I am really loving being with the kids, working with them, and helping change the world one student at a time. But no, in all seriousness, it's exactly where I wanted to be. Back doing what I absolutely love.
Absolutely, and we're glad to have you back in the classroom because you are a very good teacher, as we all know.
I appreciate that.
And Adam, you've been doing some really amazing things of late. Can you give the audience some insight into your world?
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I've been busy. I've had some exciting things going on lately. I imagine what Chris is referring to is two kind of big events in the past few weeks. I was named one of 20 to watch by the National School Boards Association for educational technology leaders, and that was amazing. The list is fantastic, and I'm honored and humbled to be a part of it. And then separate from that, I actually had CNN come to my class this week and film one of my lessons and interview me and interview my students. They had reached out about social media in the classroom, somehow came across my name. So we talked for a little while and things were going well. And they went, "Oh, that sounds cool. Can we come film it?" And I went, what? And then it all happened. And it was really awesome.
That's fantastic. And I believe the lesson you had them come in to watch involved Twitter and social media and a new take on an old type of lesson. Can you describe that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So we had just finished reading a play. I teach high school English, and my students have been doing a lot of annotation and discussion online. So I wanted to kind of combine that all into a closing discussion about the play. So I combined the fishbowl discussion strategy, where students are on an outer circle, observing and taking notes traditionally, while an inner circle of students is discussing. So if you're on the inside of the circle, 4 or 5 students have the text in their hands and are discussing a question related to the text, developing arguments, finding evidence. And on the outside, typically you're observing and reacting and taking notes. But instead, the outer circle this time were on computers in a Twitter chat. And I ran it just like you would a normal Twitter chat. We went over the same kind of rules and structure. I would pose a question on Twitter and out loud to the class. The students in the middle would discuss and debate. And on the outside would either answer on their own or react to the students, what they had to say on the inside. And then every few minutes, and magically on their own, this really worked for one class, they would say their piece, they would get up, come out of the circle, and someone else would jump right in. And we had 4 questions in the period, and it all just flowed pretty beautifully.
That is really cool. I'm so glad it was successful. And at the point that this episode is out, it will have aired on CNN already. And I'm sure if you check Adam's Twitter account, I'm sure he'll have a link or a pinned tweet that will link to this video to showcase the great work that he's doing.
Absolutely. And I got to say, it was cool because it was one of those humbling moments too. The first couple times I ran the lesson in the day, it really bombed. It just was one of those that didn't work, and I really had to rethink and attack from a different angle. And it was one of those moments that made me feel like I'm still a reflective teacher. I'm able to learn and grow and fix things on the fly and really put thought into what I'm doing and make the technology and the integration in my classroom practice purposeful and meaningful. So I'm glad it all worked out.
Me too. So, gentlemen, let's get into the content. And Adam, you have a great EdTech recommendation that you're going to be sharing with us. So why don't we go over to this episode's House of EdTech recommendation.
So today's House of EdTech recommendation is an oldie but a goodie with a new spin on it. I'm going to talk a little bit about the new Google Forms. I am a huge Google Forms fan. I use them for everything. I'm a big advocate of using Forms to gain data and then using Google add-ons to work with that data, automate things, and make giving feedback, collecting data, learning about your students so much easier. And over the past month or so, Google has rolled out their update for Google Forms. And the Google Forms has changed quite a bit. And honestly, I was a little resistant at first. I kept rolling back to the old Forms. But I've started to play with the new version, and I'm liking a lot of what I'm seeing. So that's my recommendation today. And some of the new features on Google Forms that are worth mentioning is now it's really easy to view individual student results one by one, which was never easy before. They've updated all the add-ons for Google Forms and are rolling out some new versions of those. Many are out already, even more are coming out soon. Scripts as well. And the best two options, I think, or the best new additions, are an automatic setting in Forms to get an email for new responses. That's something you had to use add-ons for earlier. And finally, a template gallery. So they have all different templates, mainly for education, a lot of them, that anyone can go and use and adapt to make your life a lot easier so you're not always started from scratch, because that's one of the things technology should do for us, make things work easier. So I encourage you guys to check out the new Google Forms. And what's great about it also is it's still the old Google Sheets. So if you're a fan of add-ons like I am, all the old stuff still works, but there's some new features worth checking out.
And now as we move forward, we're going to talk about our main topic today. We're going to focus on life after an EdCamp. Now, I know myself personally, I'm a big fan of EdCamps. I absolutely love attending EdCamps, seeing everybody that we connect on Twitter or other social media, meet them for the first time and actually get to know them and see who they are behind this post and this picture. Life after EdCamp for everybody, these are the things that we think you should be focusing on when you leave an EdCamp. Don't shut the door and say, that was great. Here's what we think you should be doing. If you're in an interesting session, you should bring your ideas to your classroom. Don't walk away and say, that's a great idea. I think I should try that. Don't think about it. Do it. Jump in there, bring the idea to your classroom, try it out. Sink or swim. We know that's what teaching is all about. Sometimes things are going to go great. Sometimes you might fall on your face, but that's good too. If you're a reflective teacher, you can bounce back and you can figure out a way to make changes. Not everything works the way that you want it to work. Some people might do it differently. Make it work for you. Adam and I were in EdCamp Southwest Connecticut, and there was a session there on question functioning tools, and I really enjoyed listening to the presenter, and the conversation really kicked off. So I said, I'm going to go back and try that. It didn't work exactly in my classroom as it worked in his, since he's been doing it for a while, but I tried it, and I was happy. If you think something should be implemented in your school that other schools around the towns or communities are working on, sit down with your department heads, sit down with other leaders of your team, sit down with your administration, talk to them, introduce the ideas. Tell them this is what I found out. These are some interesting ideas that could work for us, and work together and making those things happen in your school. EdCamps are about improving your practice, improving your school, and helping your students grow. The thing that I think we all love and we all have to remember is connect with the people that you meet. Keep the conversation alive and look for other people that think like you do. Collaborate with them. I know last night I was just happened to be on Twitter for a little bit, and somebody from EdCamp Southwest Connecticut was tweeting a little bit about the flipped classroom, and that's a passion of mine. So he was asking me some questions, and we left it that, you know what? You flip your classroom your way, I'll flip my classroom my way. Let's collaborate. Let's see what worked for you. Let's see some ideas. He's very much into making videos himself, and I kind of like to beg, borrow, and steal in the best I can, whether it's articles or documents or videos. So we're going to use different tools and see what works best for us. So those are my thoughts about EdCamp. How about you, Chris?
Well, actually, since you guys, both of you are guests / hosts, I do have a question that I'd like to pose to all three of us. And that would be based on your first point about taking something from an interesting session and bringing it back to your classroom. Can you guys share something that you learned at an EdCamp that you implemented that worked, or just something that you were excited to try?
The one that I'm most excited about is something I haven't been able to try yet, but I'm at least able to come back to my school and talk to people about, and that's Breakout EDU. And that's something that
That's what I was going to say. Just full disclosure, I was going to say Breakout EDU. But you go ahead, talk about it.
So the only reason why I haven't done it is because I have to buy the kit, and I'm trying to get my school to do that. And as we all know, that can take time sometimes. But it was great. Actually, I have played Breakout EDU 3 times, once at a GAF summit and twice at at EdCamps. And what I loved was at the EdCamps, so both times people knew that I had just played it because I tweeted about it, and they came up to me and were like, oh, come help me run this. And I had no idea what I was doing, and I jumped right in with them, and it's just so much fun. And it's a great problem solving and team building activity, and it's so much fun now knowing how the games work, watching others develop their critical thinking skills and problem solving skills and everything. And that's something I really want to bring back to my classroom. But I love that I now got the hands-on experience from the EdCamp. I got to play it. I got to lead it, that I could come back with that informed point of view and not say, hey, spend this money on the thing I haven't tried. But I got to go to a conference, an EdCamp for free, and get this great experience that now I want to bring back for us. So I hope to make that change for us soon.
I'm not going to repeat what you just said because, like I said, I was going to say Breakout EDU. At the last EdCamp New Jersey, I got to go in, and for the first time, I got to experience the Google Expeditions. I know there's some mixed reviews about that, but I also know that virtual reality and augmented reality are 2 big topics in education currently. I was really impressed by the expeditions. Simply, it was just really cool to be in that virtual reality setting. The one that I really enjoyed was the one where Danny put me I think you guys were in the room at the same time, was when she had us floating above the Earth looking down at the planet. That was pretty cool.
I actually just found out today that I just got picked for the Google Expeditions beta, so I should be able to download the Expeditions app shortly and give it a shot for real in my district now.
That's cool. How did you get involved with that?
There was a forum a couple months ago, and whenever I see those forums, I tend to fill them out and hope everyone says yes afterwards, and it seems to be working.
So I'm going to throw two things out there, if you don't mind. I was in the breakout EDU session with you, Adam, in EdCamp, New Jersey, and I found a lot of value in EdCamp. In the breakout EDU. I really enjoyed it, and I came home that night, and I was doing some research on it, and they have so many amazing kits available that I showed my wife, who's a math teacher, and I was like, you've got to try this. And she really wasn't buying it, but hopefully we get her to an EdCamp one day and we show her some breakout EDU and what it could do for students. I love the scavenger hunt aspect. But as I mentioned, he called it QFT, so it was question functioning techniques. And this was Joel Pardalis. And if you're listening, and if I butchered your last name, I apologize. But I walked away from that session. I said, I have to try this, getting my students to think more critically and ask the questions instead of me asking the questions. That was my goal of the day. I walked away excited. Another session from EdCamp Southwest Connecticut I walked away with that I tried immediately was a gentleman who was showing us how to design for our blog posts. And I think his name was Adam Schoenbart. He was giving us a little tutorial on Canva and slides. And it was such a basic thing, but just the fact that you, Adam, were able to show exactly how to design slides in a simple way, because I'm not a creative guy like that. I'm not good when it comes to design. But you were just like, you put it out there. And I was like, okay, I can do this. I used it that night when I created when I finished posting my blog post.
But you know what I think is so cool about that, AJ, and for everyone out there? The way that actually happened was we were sitting around, not sure what session to go to, looking at the board, and you looked at me and said, you know what you should do? The graphic design thing you always talk about, because we talk about this stuff constantly, but we don't always have time to sit down and collaborate and really teach each other. So I love that it was a session that was authentic from that conversation, that you were like, I want to learn about this. And at an EdCamp, we could just go, okay. And that's the kind of thing I would love to be able to bring back to my district, and for all of us to bring back to our districts, and really not just taking what we learn from an EdCamp as individual educators, but taking that EdCamp culture to shift professional learning on a bigger scale in education.
Adam, I don't mean to cut you off, but that is a stellar transition.
That's how I planned it.
But keep going. I love when we get to talk about culture, and I'll go there. Shifting education.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead, Adam.
So the idea, and even on a small scale, that like AJ and I could just talk to each other and be like, hey, we want to learn about this, and just go try something. And later in the day, we had to leave, but Russ Cooper came up to us and was like, hey, you guys want to go do a session on blogging? And it wasn't a planned, like, on the board thing even. It was, let's go talk about this, because we talk about it anyway. Now we're together. Let's have a chance to really work on something collaboratively together. And I think we're missing that in schools pretty often. And even whether it's the PD days, the idea of the district ed camp, or even the small moments, like collaborating with a colleague of, hey, can we take 10 minutes and I need to learn about this. I need your help, or I have questions. I know you're good at this, or whatever. That I think the cultures in school just prohibit that too often. And I'd love to see more ways to change that.
Yeah, and Adam, I think that's one of the best things about EdCamps. I think we're all there to learn and grow. And of course, we walk away and say, I would love to have a school like this. But you know what? I think it's up to us as these people who are going to EdCamps, and the people who are so passionate about shifting the education and making the changes that are necessary, that we need to bring this back to school and say, hey, this is what I learned. I mean, this is what we need to change. We need to stop being so stuck in our ways that this is my classroom, my rules, and start saying this is our school, our students, and really put things forward to make change for them. You know, kick our pride to the side and just say, I need help with this. And I know Adam and Chris are the guys I can talk to.
I couldn't have said that any better myself, AJ, because I had an experience in March. I'm getting lost in my dates, where I got to help my school not do a full-fledged EdCamp, but we planned a PD day that was a mini conference. And I talked about that in a previous episode, but that just sparks in me and reminds me how effective that was and how appreciative teachers I work with who haven't been used to having choice and a say in what they learn to now be presented with that. Because I'm sorry, sit and get PD has to go by way of, the chalk and the erasers, in my opinion.
So here's what I'm working on right now, actually. So as you guys know, but for our many listeners out there, I just ran a building EdCamp in my district a few weeks ago, where it was a half day, and we did full EdCamp style for the most part. But I really worked hard to try to build in the EdCamp culture with the team, my planning team, where we had food and prizes and full choice and the rule of 2 feet. But now what we're doing is we had an evaluation form, and the form ended up being kind of long, but we kept going back to it and said, these are important questions. We made a lot of them optional, so if someone wants to give us quick answers, they were able to. But we really pushed it for the first time by saying, if you enjoyed EdCamp, we need to be able to show the data of why it's valuable to the administration, to the world, and show how did our EdCamp affect your professional practice, how is it going to affect your students, how does it help our morale as teachers, what does it do for you? And I'm getting some really interesting results from that, and some really, really great results kind of hitting all the things that we're talking about right now, and I kind of want them to be saying, but it's so cool to now see the staff I work with reacting in this way when the word EdCamp was like a foreign language a month ago.
Adam, is there anything that you, and I'm going to put you on the spot, is there anything you found surprising from the results you've been getting so far?
There were a few people who we started with kind of what you like about EdCamp and what feedback do you have, how should we make things better for next time? And there were a few people who voiced concerns about being uncomfortable with the rule of 2 feet and feeling like it was rude to get up and leave. And which to me, I think it makes a lot of sense that people would feel that way if they're not familiar with the culture and depending on where you're coming from and everything. But that was something that in my mind was such an obvious kind of win for the EdCamp style that I went, oh, wait, I think we like to talk about these kind of innovative ideas in the big picture of education that just like with our students, we always have to remember to meet everyone where they are and kind of guide them to where we need to be or to these new ideas and experiences.
And I can echo your thoughts on that. Some surprising feedback that I got from the day that I helped to plan was that teachers, while they appreciated choice, they actually, some of their feedback was geared towards they didn't feel that a 50-minute session was long enough, and they didn't like the overview that some of the sessions provided. So they wanted to spend more time with a topic. But to me, that says they're still wanting that sit and get where I'll sit here for 2 or 3 hours and go real deep in a topic, as opposed to getting an overview and then kind of going off by myself to experiment or play or try it, on my own.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I actually got that response from a few people also. They would have liked more time. I haven't looked fully at all the data yet as to what they wanted the time for and how they felt about the style sessions. We tried really hard to ask our facilitators to kind of promote more of a facilitated discussion than anything sit and get, which really worked well and is what we got for the most part. But that's interesting. Another thing that we got in the comments were people responding to the idea positively that we did not design any sessions and didn't ask for sessions that were specific to any one content area. They were all best practices for teaching or helping support different student groups or strategies and so on, so that any teacher, any professional, any educator could, in theory, go to any session. There was nothing so often with PD where it's like, well, you have choice, but if you're an English teacher, you really only have these 2 choices. And if you're the language teacher, you really don't have any choice in this case at all, and so on. So that was something that we worked hard to try to really empower and invite everyone in. And I found that that the teachers I work with, they really appreciate it, and that made me very happy and kind of thankful for it all, and really kind of validated a lot of the things that we've been talking about.
Very cool. And Adam, would you say that the feedback has been positive enough that your district would do this type of day again?
So Danny Kennis, who, if you're a longtime listener, you've all heard on the show before, was with me that day. She came to school to help me out. And at the end of the day,
you brought in a ringer. That's what you did.
Yeah, totally. And she looked at me and goes, "Are they always that excited?" And I looked at her and I said, "I've never seen anything like this in my life." And it's true. And it was one of those days where everything just worked. And I wonder how if it's something we could replicate, but it was something that everyone left with such a positivity for the day, and the morale was up, and the administration was all involved in there, that I think definitely the feedback is where we need it to be to hopefully show the need for more like this.
Well, I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't share my thoughts about life after an EdCamp and some things that you can do after you attend an EdCamp, which is, I think, the best, if not the only kind of unconference you can go to. So a couple of things that I'd like to share. Number one, even after the conference has ended, and this might not be good more than a week past the conference, but to continue to use the conference hashtag on social media, so that way you can continue to foster any relationships that you've developed on Twitter or even possibly Instagram if you attend a conference where people are sharing pictures on that platform. If available, I know EdCamps that we've attended, when you go to the session board, there's usually a Google Doc associated with the session. And during the session, people will have contributed, hopefully, to a group notes in a Google Doc. I think it's a great practice to, after the conference is over, go back and review the notes from the sessions you attended, and then take advantage of the fact that maybe there was a session that you didn't get the chance to go to, but now you see the title, or you recognize the presenter because you met them later in the day, and now you can go back and see the resources and the notes from another session. So I think that's also very valuable. And if one of these happened at an EdCamp you attended, go back and review the tools that might have been shared at an App Smackdown at an EdCamp that you were at, and then share those resources and try them out. Maybe it's not going to work for you, but now you have another list of tools that you might be able to recommend to teachers you're connected with on social media or back in your building. And I think above all, and I think this might be a good place to, unless we have more comments, when you get back to your school or your district or wherever you work that you've attended one of these, tell face-to-face your colleagues and who you work with about the experience. Tell them the highlights. You could even share the negatives, but I don't think anybody really goes to an EdCamp and has a bad experience. If you do, maybe attending that type of conference isn't for you. What do you guys think about that?
As we say, EdCamps we're a fan of EdCamps, and I think some people just don't like that. As Adam said, the rule of 2 feet is difficult for some people who are new to an EdCamp. It's a difficult thing for me sometimes too. I just feel bad, walking out of a session. But I mean, sometimes there's something else going on. And if, like you said, Chris, you're checking out those notes and you want to go see what's going on, you might want to jump in there. Or if you're following the hashtag while you're there, you want to go see this session. So it's okay to leave. But I mean, it's not for everybody. Some people just want, a general conference where they're going to learn what they're going to learn. It's, a certain topic is put out there and they know what they're getting into. So while we're all for it and we enjoy the flexibility, and Adam talked about before, just going up there and presenting on something you're passionate about in the spur of the moment, some people just, they want the uniformity.
I actually had somebody that I work with tell me when I was describing an EdCamp to them, say, that sounds like something hippy dippy, like it's the 70s with open air classrooms in a high school.
No, that's the bad vibes to put out there. I mean, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to just continue education. There's that saying again. This is the way things have always been done. So we just stay with that, and we make sure that from point A to point B, from September to June, you stay on the course and keep your head above water. Like, that's not what we're doing in education anymore.
If we do what we've always done, we'll get what we've always got.
There you go.
I think I definitely agree that the EdCamp culture is not for everybody, but more than anything, I think that there are people who are not open enough to growth and change. And I question, well, if you're not open enough to the professional growth outside of the classroom, like an EdCamp, are you open, and how are you open to growth and change inside your classroom? And that's by no means saying if you don't go to an EdCamp or don't like EdCamp, you can't be a good teacher, or nothing like that. But the idea that, for me, it's all about growth mindset, and it's all about being willing to try new ideas and realize that education in the world around us is changing, and the way and professional learning's got to change with that. So I think we kind of got to get rid of a little bit of ego and preconceived notions in the not just the world of education, but everywhere, and just do what's right to be better educators and for our kids.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. Now, Chris, I know you had, I think this is a conversation we had, you had a success story about bringing a colleague to an EdCamp.
Yes, I had attended, and I was disappointed that you couldn't also attend, but we all have our commitments, and that's part of life.
Sorry about that.
No harm, no foul. I was able to bring a math teacher who, on a normal day in the block schedule, covers my lunch. And when he was initially assigned the duty to cover my lunch and be in the in-school suspension room, he thought he had just been damned to hell, basically. But really what that has turned into for him has been one-on-one time with me, because when he comes in, we wind up talking for the 30, 40 minutes of the lunch period. And this is somebody, Jamie Joshua, who you've got to talk to, AJ, via Google Hangout, because Jamie, like you, is also very interested in flipping his classroom. And he still talks about, hey, Nessie, remember when we sat and we talked to that guy who works in another school, and we just talked to him on video, and basically you guys just said, don't wait till next September. Just jump in and do it. Just try it. And he is all in and wants to attend EdCamps. At the time this episode is going to be released, spring break has passed, and he was not able to attend EdCamp Philly, but he's all set to attend a number of other conferences, EdCamps, and similar style events later this spring in 2016. But it's been eye-opening for him, and slowly I'm finding more people who are open to the idea of attending these unconferences. So it was a great experience for him, overall.
That's really great, Chris. And just to add to that, I ran another EdCamp last summer, EdCamp Manhattanville, and I got two of my colleagues to come, another English teacher and an administrator, and only two. But then this year, those two were the ones who, when I said, hey, we should start an EdCamp, they were the ones who said, yes, we need that. They knew what it was like. They experienced it. They had a great time. They learned a lot. And now just with those two colleagues, that's all I needed to get the plan off the ground and really start building a team, because my enthusiasm alone is one thing, but now three is it's a lot more than one in a school. You get three people involved in something, that three becomes 4 and 5 and grows pretty quickly. So I think that as starting with one colleague and leveraging that and letting it grow and snowball from there, I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, and with the as far as sharing it with other colleagues, I've actually had my principal tell me a number of times this year, who he's a big fan of sharing, and he is what I would consider to be a forward-thinking lead learner, administrator, all those buzzy things that we talk about. He gets it, basically. And he said a number of times to me this year, Ness, I got to come to one of these things with you. So basically I tell him, all right, here's when some things are happening, sure, come along. And I tell him, you need to come to one of these, because then coming from a building leader, I think that's going to mean even more as far as providing the value, and then me helping to maybe next time we have a PD day, make it a full-on EdCamp style PD. And that's really what my goal is.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a good goal to have. I think, spreading the word, you keep saying it, spread the word, get those people involved, start with one and then see what it branches out to. That's all you can do, right? There's a quote from a movie that I absolutely love. A waterfall begins with only one drop.
Do you guys have any other thoughts to share on life after EdCamp and any other recommendations?
Keep going. Keep pushing, just putting yourself out there and make those changes that are necessary.
Yeah, I think I just say there needs to be a life after EdCamp. Don't let that be the end, the one-time event. That I think it's all about pushing education forward and changing culture, and that takes time.
Absolutely, and I would say don't treat EdCamp like summer camp. Keep the party going. Now, before we move into the House of EdTech VIP, we just talked all about life after EdCamp, and really one of the other things that you need to do is find out when the next EdCamp is. And one of the best ways that you can do that is by adding future EdCamps to your calendar. Now, Adam, you're the co-founder of the Education Calendar. What is the benefit of the Education Calendar?
So, Chris, the Education Calendar is a crowdsourced global map and calendar of education events. So the way it works is you go to the educal.com and you put in where you live. And there is a map of the world, and you type in where you live, state, location, even as much as city, region, anything. And it searches all education events that our users have added. And there's about 175 events upcoming for the next few months that users have added to the calendar, and over 600 events or so since our creation last April. So there's a lot going on in the world of education, and we want to give you a place to share your events, to promote and add new events, but also to find great learning opportunities going on in your area.
And the other thing that you and Danny, your co-founder, offer is the EduCal Ambassador Program. How can people get involved with that?
So the way the Ambassador Program works, it's pretty simple. There is a form on the site, which again is the educal.com, TheEducal, and same handle on Twitter there. And the way it works is you fill out the form and tell us where you're from and an area that you would like to represent, and tell us why you would like to work with us at the Educal. And we send our ambassadors a whole bunch of stickers and ask them to add events in their area, promote with stickers, and in turn we'll promote you guys online, promote events you're involved in. So just another way for us all to kind of give back and share and learn and grow together. We just launched the Education Calendar blog at blog.theeducal.com, which just came out this week, and our first post by Tom Milani is a reflection of GAF Summit in Maryland. And the idea behind the blog is a place to share the stories behind the events. So if you've attended a great conference and you want to share your learning, your reflection, please reach out. We'd love to feature you.
Awesome. And a big thank you to the Education Calendar for being a part of this episode of the House of EdTech, the EduCal. Where do you want to learn next?
Ladies and gentlemen, your House of EdTech VIP is the one and only Bruce Riker. My man. Bruce is a father, an apps TV production teacher for the Upper Saddle River Schools in Bergen County, New Jersey. He is a Google certified teacher. He leads professional development for his staff at his school, as well as a variety of conferences around the state. He is presented at what we affectionately call the Alphabet Conference, NJPA ESET2. He's also presented at the New Jersey Association for Middle Level Education, NJAMLE, and he has been to a variety of EdCamps throughout the different regions. He's also a member of his town's Board of Education, where he is putting his children first and putting students first. And I'm telling you, if you don't know Bruce Riker, you got to get to know this guy. This guy is fantastic. He led a session over at NJPA ESET2 called Lights, Camera, Action, creating a student-produced TV show. And if that's something that interests you, you got to connect with Bruce. And you can find Bruce on Twitter at briker, and that's at BREICHER. I'm telling you, I love this guy. You got to get to know Bruce.
I first met Bruce back at EdCamp Manhattanville, and since then I feel like I see him everywhere. He's a regular at the local conferences, at our coffee DUs, and on Twitter. Great guy to connect with.
I think he's a fantastic guy, too. I've had the pleasure of seeing him at conferences, and also he keynoted a conference that I presented at Caldwell University. So that's where I actually got to first meet Bruce. So congratulations, Bruce Riker. You are the House of EdTech VIP. Well, gentlemen, that's going to do it for this episode of the House of EdTech. Be forewarned, we have 3 minutes and 4 seconds of music to close this out. Gentlemen, we're going to have everybody keep the conversation going, and they're going to be able to visit the website, chrisnessy.com. And to access the show notes for this episode, you're going to go to chrisnessy.com/58, and all the links and all the resources that I shared and AJ shared and Adam shared will all be there. So, gentlemen, did you have fun today?
You know it, Chris.
I was very enthusiastic about this. I just hope this bad boy recorded. Please make sure it worked out, Chris. Please make sure it worked.
The red light is still blinking.
I just hope the echo didn't, what's going on in my background didn't interrupt any of the recording. My fingers are closed.
Other than the fact that you just said it. Adam, where can people connect with you?
You can connect with me on Twitter at Mr. Schoenbart, SCHOENBART, or at aschoenbart.com.
And please feel free to follow me on Twitter as well at AJ Bianco. That's AJBIANCO. And you can check out my blogs. I'll be actually working on. I have some things in mind here at ajbianco.me. So my blog is in the works, and I'm proud of myself that I have some topics going. I'm writing. Let's do it.
Awesome. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here, and I think we'll do this again. And of course, for everybody listening, you know I want you to connect with me as well, and I want to hear your thoughts on the information and resources that we talked about in this episode. So over on the website, be sure to click Share Feedback, and that's going to give you access to my email and all the different ways that you can connect with me. The fastest is on Twitter, where I am Mr. Nessy, MRNESI, and just use the hashtag House of EdTech. Now, if you enjoyed the podcast, and you're listening, so you must, number one, I'd like you to go and tell somebody. Just like you're going to talk about EdCamps you attended, tell somebody else about the House of EdTech and how they can go and subscribe and consume it. Number two, rate and review the podcast on iTunes. Your rating and honest review will help keep the House of EdTech front and center for others to discover and enjoy. You can also support the show by becoming an awesome patron by going to chrisnessy.com/awesome. On the next episode of the podcast, you're in for a special treat that you're not going to want to miss. Episode 59 will be released on April 24th, 2016. Thank you again, AJ and Adam, for co-hosting today's episode. Thank you for joining us, and remember,
using technology isn't difficult.
Just give it a try.
The House of EdTech is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. The Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more, go to edupodcastnetwork.com.